I'm Sarah Chun, 34 years old, and I work as a pediatric nurse at Children's Memorial Hospital. I'm a single mom to my son, Marcus. After my divorce, I moved back to my hometown, so I could have the support of my family while raising him. The smell of vanilla frosting mixed with something sharper, something that made my stomach clench as I watched my 10-year-old son Marcus blow out his birthday candles. The scent should have been pure sweetness, but there was an undertone of burnt sugar from the kitchen mishap earlier, and now it felt like a warning I should have heeded. "Make a wish, baby," I whispered, my hand resting on his shoulder as 23 family members crowded around our dining room table. The cake, a 3-layer chocolate masterpiece I'd spent 4 hours decorating with superhero figures, sat between us like a sugary fortress. Marcus closed his eyes tight, his dark lashes casting shadows on his cheeks in the warm glow of the candles. 10 flames danced, reflecting in the faces of aunts, uncles, cousins, and grandparents who'd driven hours to be here. My father stood at the far end of the table, his weathered hands clasped behind his back, watching with that distant smile he'd perfected since Mom died.
And there was my sister Diane.
She'd been drinking since she arrived. I could smell the wine on her breath when she'd hugged me earlier, could see it in the way she swayed slightly as she leaned against the wall. At 38, Diane had perfected the art of making every family gathering about her disappointments, her failed relationships, her string of jobs that never quite worked out. Marcus opened his eyes and took a deep breath. "Wait." Diane's voice cut through the gentle murmur of the crowd. "Let me help you blow them out, birthday boy." Before I could process what was happening, before I could step forward or say a word, Diane's hands were on my son's head. Not gently guiding him toward the cake, pushing.
Hard.
The sound Marcus made when his face hit the cake wasn't a laugh or a surprised yelp. It was a sharp cry of pain that cut through every conversation in the room like a blade through silk. "Oh my God." I lunged forward, my hands already reaching for my son as he pulled his face back from the destroyed cake. Chocolate frosting covered his cheeks, but underneath it, angry red welts were already forming where the still warm candle wax had splattered across his skin. "Marcus, baby, let me see." My nursing training kicked in as I gently turned his face toward the light. The burns weren't severe, but they were real. Small blisters were forming along his left cheek, where the hottest wax had made contact. "It was just a joke." Diane's voice pitched higher, defensive. "Kids love getting their faces in cake. It's tradition." "Tradition?" I spun to face her, my voice barely controlled.
"He's burned, Diane."
"Look at his face." The room had gone silent except for Marcus's quiet sniffling. He wasn't crying. My brave boy never cried, but I could see the shock and hurt in his eyes. Not just from the physical pain, but from the betrayal. Diane was his aunt. She was supposed to protect him. "Sarah, calm down." My father's voice carried that tone I remembered from childhood, the one that meant I was being too emotional, too dramatic. "It's barely a scratch. Boys need to toughen up." I stared at him, my hands still cupping Marcus's face, feeling the heat radiating from the burns. "Dad." She pushed his face into lit candles. "He's injured." "Injured?" Diane laughed, but it sounded forced. "Come on, Sarah. You're being ridiculous. It's a little red mark. He'll be fine by tomorrow. Get out." The words came out quieter than I intended, but they carried across the silent room like thunder. "What?" Diane blinked at me. I said, "Get out. Both of you." I looked from my sister to my father. "This is my son's birthday party, and you just..." My voice cracked. "You hurt him, and you're defending it." My father's face hardened. "Sarah, Elizabeth, you're overreacting. Diane made a mistake, but..." "A mistake?" I stood up, Marcus's small hand finding mine. "A mistake is dropping something or saying the wrong thing. This was deliberate." She pushed my child's face into burning candles, "And you're telling me to calm down." The extended family members began shifting uncomfortably, gathering purses and jackets, with the practiced efficiency of people who'd witnessed too many Chin family explosions. Within minutes, the house that had been full of laughter and celebration was empty except for Marcus and me. I spent the next hour in the bathroom, carefully cleaning the wax from his burns and applying cool compresses. Marcus sat on the edge of the bathtub, unusually quiet. "Mom," he finally said as I dabbed antibiotic ointment on the worst of the welts. "Yeah, baby? Why did Aunt Diane do that?" I paused, the cotton swab halfway to his face. How do you explain to a 10-year-old that sometimes the people who are supposed to love you the most are the ones who hurt you? How do you tell him that his grandfather chose his aunt's feelings over his grandson's safety? I don't know, Marcus. Sometimes grown-ups make really bad choices. He nodded solemnly, accepting this explanation the way children do when the adult world stops making sense. That night, after Marcus had fallen asleep with ice packs wrapped in soft towels pressed against his cheek, I sat in my kitchen staring at the destroyed cake. Chocolate and frosting were smeared across the table, candle wax hardened in abstract patterns across the surface. The superhero figures I'd so carefully placed were scattered and broken. My phone buzzed. A text from my father. *, you embarrassed the family today. Diane feels terrible. You owe her an apology. *. I stared at the message until the words blurred. Then I turned off my phone and went to bed. The next morning, I was in the kitchen making Marcus breakfast when I heard the sound that would change everything. The distinctive rumble of my grandmother's 1987 Buick pulling into the driveway. But there was something else, something that made me freeze with the spatula halfway to flipping Marcus's pancakes. The car door slammed with unusual force, and through the kitchen window, I could see Grandma Rose walking toward the house. At 82, she moved with the careful precision of someone whose bones had earned their aches, but today her stride was different. Purposeful. And in her right hand, she carried something that made my blood run cold. A Louisville Slugger baseball bat, its wooden surface worn smooth from decades of use. Marcus looked up from his orange juice. Is that great-grandma? Before I could answer, 3 sharp knocks echoed through the house. Not the gentle tap-tap-tap of an elderly woman's visit, but the commanding knock of someone who meant business. I opened the front door to find Grandma Rose standing on my porch, like an avenging angel in a floral housecoat. The baseball bat rested against her shoulder with the casual confidence of someone who knew exactly how to use it. Her steel-gray hair was pulled back in its usual tight bun, but her eyes, those sharp blue eyes that had seen 82 years of family drama, burned with a fury I'd never witnessed before. Where are they? Her voice carried the authority of a woman who'd raised 6 children during the Depression and buried a husband after 53 years of marriage. Grandma, what are you? Don't you grandma what me? Sarah Elizabeth. She stepped past me into the house, the bat making a soft thud against the hardwood floor with each step. I heard what happened at my great-grandson's birthday party. Now where are that worthless daughter of mine and your fool of a father? Marcus appeared in the kitchen doorway, his face still bearing the angry red marks from yesterday's incident. When Grandma Rose saw him, something shifted in her expression. The fury crystallized into something colder, more dangerous. Come here, baby boy, she said, her voice gentling as she knelt down to Marcus's level, the bat balanced against her knee. Let me see what they did to you. Marcus approached cautiously. Grandma Rose had always been his favorite, the one who snuck him extra cookies and told him stories about the old days, but even he seemed to sense that today was different. She examined his face with the careful attention of someone who'd tended to countless childhood injuries over the decades. Her weathered fingers traced the air just above the burns, never quite touching but assessing the damage with practiced eyes. Candle wax, she murmured, more to herself than to us. Pushed face first into lit candles. She looked up at me. And your father defended this? I nodded, not trusting my voice. Grandma Rose stood slowly, her joints creaking in protest, and picked up the bat. Get your coats. We're going for a ride. Grandma, I don't think. Sarah. The single word stopped my protest cold. That woman hurt my great-grandson, and your father chose her side over his own grandson's safety. This ends today. 20 minutes later, we pulled into the driveway of my father's house, the same house where Diane had been staying since her latest boyfriend kicked her out 3 weeks ago. Grandma Rose's Buick rumbled to a stop behind Dad's pickup truck, and I could see movement in the front window as someone peered through the curtains. Stay in the car with Marcus, Grandma Rose instructed, hefting the bat as she climbed out of the driver's seat with surprising agility. Grandma, please don't. But she was already marching up the front walkway, the bat swinging gently at her side like a pendulum counting down to Judgment Day. I watched through the windshield as she knocked on the front door, 3 sharp raps that echoed across the quiet neighborhood. The door opened, and I could see my father's face, his expression shifting from surprise to confusion to something approaching fear as he registered the bat in his mother's hands. "Mom, what are you?" "Step aside, Robert." Grandma Rose's voice carried clearly across the yard. "I'm here to see Diane." "Now hold on. You can't just—" I said, "Step aside." The bat came up slightly, not quite a threat, but definitely a promise. "Unless you want to be part of this conversation too." Dad stepped back, and Grandma Rose disappeared into the house. Through the open door, I could hear voices, Diane's high-pitched protests, Dad's attempts at mediation, and underneath it all, Grandma Rose's steady, implacable tone. "Mom, what's happening?" Marcus asked from the back seat, his voice small. "Great-grandma is having a talk with Aunt Diane and Grandpa about what happened to my face." I turned to look at him, this brave little boy who'd been hurt by people who were supposed to love him. "Yeah, baby? About what happened to your face?" The voices from inside the house grew louder. I could make out fragments. Diane saying something about accidents and overreactions, Dad trying to calm everyone down, and then Grandma Rose's voice cutting through it all like a blade. "You pushed a child's face into burning candles, Diane Marie. A 10-year-old boy who trusted you. It was just a prank. Kids do it all the time. Kids do not push other kids face first into lit candles. That's assault, you foolish girl." There was a crash from inside, something falling or being knocked over, and then Diane's voice rose to a shriek. "You can't threaten me with that thing. I'll call the police." "Go ahead." Grandma Rose's voice was deadly calm. "Call them. Let's see what they think about an adult woman deliberately burning a child's face and then claiming it was a joke." The front door burst open, and Diane stumbled out onto the porch, her face flushed and her hands shaking. She looked toward our car, her eyes wild, and for a moment I thought she might run toward us. Instead, she turned back toward the house. "This is insane. She's threatening me with a baseball bat." Grandma Rose appeared in the doorway, the bat held loosely in her hands but ready. "I haven't threatened you yet, Diane. But I'm about to make you a promise." She stepped onto the porch, and even from the car, I could see the steel in her posture. This was the woman who'd worked double shifts in a factory during World War II, who'd buried 3 of her own children, who'd held our family together through decades of chaos and heartbreak. "If you ever, and I mean ever, lay a hand on my great-grandson again, if you so much as look at him wrong, I will make sure you regret it for the rest of your miserable life." She lifted the bat slightly, letting the afternoon sun catch the worn wood. "This bat belonged to your grandfather. He used it to teach respect to neighborhood bullies who thought they could pick on smaller kids. Today, I'm using it to teach respect to a grown woman who should know better." "Mom, please." Dad appeared behind her, his face pale. "Don't you mom please me, Robert." Grandma Rose didn't turn around, keeping her eyes fixed on Diane. "You had a choice yesterday. You could have stood up for your grandson, could have shown him that his family would protect him. Instead, you chose to defend the person who hurt him." She finally turned to face my father, and I saw him actually take a step back. "That boy is 10 years old, Robert."
10.
And yesterday, he learned that his grandfather cares more about keeping the peace than keeping him safe. Her voice cracked slightly, the first sign of emotion beyond anger that she'd shown. "How do you think that felt for him?" Dad's mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. Grandma Rose turned back to Diane, who was now pressed against the porch railing like a cornered animal. "As for you, Diane Marie, you have exactly one chance to make this right. You will apologize to that boy, a real apology, not some half-hearted excuse about jokes and accidents. You will mean it. And then you will stay away from him until you figure out how to be a decent human being." "I don't have to." The bat came up fast, stopping just inches from Diane's chest. "Yes, you do. Because the alternative is that I explain to the police exactly what you did to a 10-year-old child, and we let them decide whether it was assault or just a harmless prank. Diane's face went white. You wouldn't. Try me. The silence stretched between them, broken only by the distant sound of a lawnmower and the rustle of leaves in the breeze. Finally, Diane's shoulders sagged.
Fine. I'll
apologize.
Good.
Grandma Rose lowered the bat, but didn't step back. And Robert. Dad looked up like a scolded child. You think long and hard about what kind of grandfather you want to be. Because right now you're failing that boy, and he deserves better. She turned and walked back toward the car, her steps measured and deliberate. As she reached the driver's door, she paused and looked back at the house where Dad and Diane still stood frozen on the porch. Oh, and Diane? I'll be keeping this bat handy, just in case you forget our little conversation. She climbed into the car and started the engine, her hands steady on the steering wheel despite everything that had just happened. Are we going home now? Marcus asked as we pulled out of the driveway. Yes, baby. We're going home. But as we drove away, I caught sight of Diane in the side mirror. She was still standing on the porch, staring after us, and something in her expression made my stomach clench with unease. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. That evening, as I was tucking Marcus into bed, my phone rang. The caller ID showed my father's number, and for a moment I considered letting it go to voicemail. But something made me answer. Sarah? Dad's voice sounded older than I'd ever heard it. We need to talk. The call from my father came at 11:47 p.m., 3 hours after I'd finally gotten Marcus to sleep. His voice was shaky, almost whispered, like he was afraid someone might overhear. Sarah, you need to come over here. Now. Dad, it's almost midnight. What's wrong? It's Diane. She's gone completely off the rails. After what happened today with your grandmother, she's been drinking and making threats. She says she's going to make you and Marcus pay for humiliating her. My blood turned to ice. What kind of threats? She's talking about calling Child Protective Services, telling them you're an unfit mother. She says she has evidence that you've been neglecting Marcus, that the burns on his face prove you can't keep him safe. His voice cracked. Sarah, I tried to stop her, but she's not listening to reason. She's already made some calls. I sank onto my couch, the phone trembling in my hand. Dad, you know that's not true. You know I would never. Of course I know that. But Diane, she's convinced herself that she was just playing around yesterday, that you overreacted, and now she wants revenge. He paused, and I could hear muffled shouting in the background. There's more. She's been going through your mother's things, the boxes I stored in the basement after the funeral. She found something. What kind of something? The letters, Sarah. The ones your mother wrote, but never sent. My heart stopped. I knew exactly what letters he meant. After Mom died 2 years ago, I'd helped Dad clean out her desk and found a stack of unsent letters she'd written during her battle with cancer. Letters to each of us, full of her fears, her regrets, her desperate wishes for our futures. Dad had been too grief-stricken to read them, so we'd boxed them up with the intention of going through them together someday. What did she find? The letter your mother wrote about you, about your divorce, about her worries that you were struggling as a single mother. His voice dropped even lower. Sarah, your mother was scared for you back then. She wrote things that could be taken out of context if someone wanted to use them against you. The room spun around me. Mom had been worried about me during the divorce. I'd been a mess, working double shifts at the hospital, barely sleeping, trying to hold everything together while my marriage fell apart. But I'd gotten through it. I'd built a good life for Marcus and me. Diane's threatening to give those letters to CPS, isn't she? She's drunk and angry and not thinking straight. But yes. I closed my eyes, trying to think. Where is she now? That's the problem. She left about an hour ago. Took the letters with her. I don't know where she went, but she was talking about how she was going to fix this situation once and for all. A chill ran down my spine. Dad, I need to call the police. Wait. His voice was urgent. There's something else. Your grandmother, she's missing too. What do you mean missing? After we got home this afternoon, She said she was going back to her house to rest. But when I called to check on her an hour ago, she didn't answer. I drove over there. Her car's gone. And Mrs. Patterson next door said she saw her leave around 10 o'clock with a suitcase in her trunk. My mind raced. Grandma Rose with a suitcase at 10 p.m., Diane drunk and vengeful with damaging letters, and somewhere in the middle of it all, my sleeping son who had no idea his world might be about to implode. Dad, I'm coming over. I need to see those letters, figure out exactly what we're dealing with. Sarah, maybe you should just stay home with Marcus. Lock the doors, and… The line went dead. I stared at the phone, my heart hammering. Dad never hung up without saying goodbye. Never. I crept into Marcus's room to check on him. He was sleeping peacefully, his face turned away from the pillow to avoid pressure on his burns. The sight of those angry red marks made my chest tighten with a mixture of love and fury. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Check your front porch. Every instinct screamed at me not to go to the door, but I found myself moving toward it anyway. Through the peephole, I could see a manila envelope propped against the doorframe. No car in the driveway, no sign of whoever had left it. I opened the door just wide enough to grab the envelope, then quickly locked it again. Inside were photocopies of my mother's letters, pages and pages of her careful handwriting, her private fears and worries laid bare. And attached to the front was a note in Diane's sloppy script. Sarah, these letters show what your mother really thought about your parenting. How you were overwhelmed and making poor choices. How she was worried about Marcus's safety when you were working so much. CPS will be very interested in a grandmother's concerns about neglect. You have until tomorrow morning to publicly apologize for yesterday and admit you overreacted, or these go to the authorities. Your choice.
D.
I sank into a chair, the letters scattered across my coffee table. Reading my mother's private fears about my struggles during the divorce felt like a violation, but I forced myself to scan through them. Mom had been worried, yes, but her concerns were those of any loving mother watching her daughter go through a difficult time. Taken out of context, though, twisted by someone with malicious intent. My phone rang again. This time it was Grandma Rose. Sarah, honey, are you all right? Grandma, where are you? Dad said you disappeared. I'm exactly where I need to be. Now listen carefully, is Marcus safe? He's sleeping. Grandma, Diane left letters on my porch. She's threatening to call CPS and… I know about the letters, sweetheart. That's why I'm where I am. Where are you? Diane's ex-boyfriend's apartment. The one who kicked her out 3 weeks ago. There was a grim satisfaction in her voice. Turns out she's been staying here tonight, drinking and making phone calls. She's already contacted Child Protective Services, Sarah. Filed a report claiming you're neglectful and that Marcus's burns are evidence of an unsafe home. The world tilted sideways. She actually did it?
She did.
But here's the thing about your sister. She's always been sloppy when she's drunk. She left her phone unlocked, and I've been reading her text messages while she passed out on the couch. Grandma, what are you doing there? How did you even find her? Honey, I've been dealing with Diane's drama for 38 years. I know all her hiding spots. Her voice hardened. And I know exactly how to handle bullies. I heard movement in the background, voices, and then Diane's slurred speech. Who the hell are you talking to? Your sister, Grandma Rose replied calmly. The one you just tried to destroy with lies and manipulation. Give me that phone. Diane's voice was getting closer. Sarah, Grandma Rose said quickly, I need you to call Detective Morrison at the police station. Tell him Rose Chin sent you, and that you need to report harassment and filing a false CPS report. I'm about to send you some very interesting text messages from Diane's phone. Grandma, what did you do? What I should have done years ago. I'm teaching your sister that actions have consequences. The line went dead, but within seconds my phone was buzzing with incoming messages. Screenshots of text conversations between Diane and various people, including her ex-boyfriend, where she bragged about her plan to get back at Sarah and make her pay for embarrassing me. Messages where she admitted the CPS report was revenge, not genuine concern. Messages where she detailed exactly how she planned to twist our mother's private letters to make me look like an unfit parent. But the most damning message was one sent just hours ago to someone named Rick. The kid's burns aren't even that bad, but CPS doesn't need to know that. I'm going to tell them Sarah did it herself to cover up other abuse. 2 birds, 1 stone. I get revenge and maybe get custody of Marcus. Kid's probably worth good money in support payments. I stared at the screen, my hands shaking. Diane wasn't just trying to hurt me, she was planning to take my son. My phone rang again. This time it was Detective Morrison. Miss Chun? I understand you need to report some harassment. Your grandmother is quite a character. She's here at the station with your sister and a very interesting collection of evidence. Is Marcus safe? Am I going to lose him? Ma'am, based on what your grandmother has provided, it's clear that the CPS report was filed maliciously. We're going to be having a very serious conversation with your sister about filing false reports and harassment. As for your son, I'd say he's lucky to have a mother who protects him and a great-grandmother who doesn't mess around. Relief flooded through me so suddenly I had to sit down. What happens now? Now? Your sister is going to be charged with filing a false report, harassment, and possibly attempted fraud. The CPS case will be dismissed once they see the evidence of her real motives. And your grandmother? He chuckled. Your grandmother is giving us a very detailed statement about everything that's happened, including yesterday's incident with the birthday cake. Is she in trouble? For the baseball bat. The baseball bat that she never actually used to threaten anyone? The one she carried for protection while confronting someone who had assaulted her great-grandson. His voice was amused. No, ma'am. Your grandmother is not in trouble. After I hung up, I sat in my living room surrounded by the scattered letters, feeling like I'd just survived a tornado. My phone buzzed one more time. A text from Grandma Rose. Diane will be staying as a guest of the county tonight. Your father is on his way over to apologize properly. Make him grovel a little. It's good for his character. The baseball bat is in my trunk if you need it. Love you, sweetheart. 20 minutes later, Dad knocked softly on my door. When I opened it, he looked like he'd aged 10 years in the past day. His eyes were red-rimmed, his shoulders slumped with exhaustion and shame. Sarah, don't. I held up a hand. Not here. Marcus is sleeping. We sat on my front porch in the cool night air, the same porch where Diane had left her threatening package just hours earlier. Dad stared at his hands for a long time before speaking. I failed you both yesterday. You and Marcus. His voice was barely above a whisper. When I saw what Diane did, I should have been furious. I should have protected my grandson. Instead, I worried about keeping the peace, about not making waves. Dad. Let me finish. He looked up at me, and I saw tears in his eyes. Your mother would be ashamed of me. She would have grabbed that baseball bat herself if she'd seen someone hurt Marcus like that. And I just stood there and made excuses. We sat in silence for a while, listening to the night sounds of the neighborhood. Finally, Dad spoke again. Your grandmother called me from the police station. Told me exactly what Diane was planning, what she'd already done. He shook his head. I knew Diane had problems, but I never thought she'd go that far. To try to take Marcus away from you.
She's sick, Dad.
She's been sick for a long time, and we've all been enabling it by making excuses for her. No more excuses. His voice was firm. When she gets out of jail, she's not welcome in my house anymore. And she's certainly not welcome around Marcus. I reached over and took his hand. Dad, I know you love us. I know yesterday was hard for you too. That's no excuse for choosing the wrong side. He squeezed my hand. But I'm choosing the right side now. Whatever it takes to make this right with you and Marcus. The next morning, Marcus woke up to find his great-grandmother in our kitchen making pancakes, the infamous baseball bat propped against the counter like a kitchen utensil. Great-grandma. He ran to her, careful not to bump his healing face against her apron. Mom said you went to talk to Aunt Diane. I did indeed, baby boy. She flipped a pancake with expert precision. And we had a very productive conversation about treating people with respect. Is she going to say sorry for hurting me? Grandma Rose paused, the spatula halfway to the griddle. You know what, Marcus? Some people aren't capable of real apologies. But what matters is that she won't be hurting you again. Because of the baseball bat? She laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. Because sometimes, when people won't listen to words, you have to show them you're serious about protecting the people you love. Marcus nodded solemnly, accepting this wisdom the way children do when the adult world finally makes sense again. 3 weeks later, Marcus's burns had healed completely, leaving only the faintest marks that would fade with time. Diane pled guilty to filing a false report and was sentenced to community service and mandatory counseling. She moved 2 states away to live with a cousin, and we haven't heard from her since. Dad comes over every Sunday now for dinner, and he's teaching Marcus how to play baseball in the backyard. The Louisville Slugger sits in our hall closet, not hidden, but not displayed either. Just there, a quiet reminder that sometimes love requires fierce protection. And Grandma Rose? She still drives that 1987 Buick, still makes the best pancakes in 3 counties, and still carries herself with the quiet authority of someone who knows exactly how far she'll go to protect her family. The other day, Marcus asked me why Great-Grandma brought the baseball bat that night. Because, I told him, sometimes the people who love you most are the ones who'll fight the hardest to keep you safe. He thought about this for a moment, then nodded. Like superheroes. Exactly like superheroes, baby. Exactly like that.